The MLS Cup playoffs are here, and round one of the playoffs kick off on Saturday. Now, on Wednesday, we had one-game wildcard games between the Red Bulls and Charlotte and Sporting Kansas City and San Jose. New York won 5-2, and SKC won in a shootout after being drawn 0-0 after full time. We now have 8 best-of-3 round one series with the higher seed in the regular season hosting games 1 and potentially game 3 if necessary. Also to note, there is no extra time in these games, so if they are tied after regulation, we're going straight to PK, so this is much like we had and saw in the League's Cup. In an odds twist, several of these round one matchups we've seen very recently. Very recent, so recent as we saw some of them on Decision Day, which should give us some recent information to use for this weekend in those quick turnaround. Now I'm going to break down all 8 matchups this weekend that run from Saturday to Wednesday and put together 3 different parlays for these games. Now, while you're listening, it'd be a big help if you give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so we can keep spreading these MLS picks to more people by the end of the season. Now, okay, let's get started. And we'll go on to Saturday where we have 2 games and one starting in the Eastern Conference. It's Philadelphia and New England. 4th in the East, Philadelphia hosts 5th, New England. These teams were equal on 55 points, but Philadelphia finished above based on tiebreakers. New England just won between these teams when they played on Decision Day. It was 2-1 in New England, while Philadelphia won 3-1 at home back in May when they played then. Philly has long been dominant at home. They were 12-4-1 in MLS this season, outscoring opponents 33-13, but in all competitions, they have just 2 defeats in 46 games at Subaru Park if you go further back than just this season. But their recent form, though, lately is lacking. They won 2 of 3 after League's Cup, but since that time, they were just 1-6-1. Outside of 0-0 draws, though, with Nashville and LAFC. Bets on both teams to score have hit in each of their other 9 games since League's Cup. Then again, New England, they don't enter the playoffs in great form themselves. They won against Philly on Decision Day, but that was only their 3rd win in 11 games since League's Cup themselves. The Revs haven't kept a clean sheet since August 30th, and they've allowed both the most shots and second most shots on target in the league overall since the 1-0 win on August 30th, which was the last time they kept the clean sheet. Both teams to score have hit in 9 straight games, and both teams to score in over 2.5 have hit in 7 straight. To give a better picture of how open their games have been and how much scoring there's been, I'll just read off their recent score lines. And those score lines have been 2-1, 3-2, 3-2, 2-1, 2-1, 2-2, 2-1, 1-1, and 2-2. This looks like a good game for both teams to score, or maybe both teams to score in over 2.5 by itself. I'll be going both teams to score with these 2 games and tying that in to a result in the next game on Saturday, and it's over in the Western Conference. It's LAFC and Vancouver. We also just saw this matchup on Decision Day. Now, this is 3rd place LAFC with 52 points, hosting 6th place Vancouver with 48 points. These teams just drew 1-1 on Decision Day in Vancouver, but it could have been more if Vancouver didn't miss some PKs. In the 3 previous meetings this season, LAFC won 3-0 in both legs of the CCL, and Vancouver won 3-2 on the road in LA and MLS in June. So this will actually be the 5th meeting this season between the teams. Now, LAFC have Carlos Vela and Golden Boot winner Dennis Bouanga. The Caps have Ryan Gold and Brian White, who have also been on fire. So there's plenty of opportunity for goals in this game. Which LAFC team will show up? The one that had 1 win in 8 competitions, 1 win in 8 in all competitions, and were shut out in 4 straight, or the one that finished the season with a 5-1 win, a 4-1 win, and a 1-1 draw, with this Vancouver team so being undefeated in their last 3. The Caps have been more consistent down the stretch run of the season, going 4-5-2 in their final 9. They're also undefeated in their last 5, but they only have 1 win in those 5. But other than a 0-0 draw with Seattle in their second to last game, and Seattle notoriously plays low-scoring games, there's been at least 2 goals in 8 of the past 9 Vancouver games. Both teams to score is also 7-2 in those past 9 for Vancouver. This game also looks like it could be both teams to score or both teams to score in over 2.5. I'm going to go over 1.5. It's what I used on Decision Day in a parlay. Also used both teams to score with New England and Philly on Decision Day. Let's do the same thing here. So we'll go Philly, New England, both teams to score. I'm going to go LAFC and Vancouver over 1.5. I think we'll see goals, but just in case one of these teams wins 2-0, we'll be safe there. That comes in at minus 129 odds in those 2 games on Saturday. Let's move into Sunday, and we have 3 games on Sunday, and it kicks off with Houston and Real Salt Lake. Houston were 4th in the West with 51 points, and they'll be hosting RSL, who were 5th with 50 points. In the first, it's the first of 3 meetings this season, and the first time they met, the teams drew 0-0 in Houston in MLS. The Dynamo won at home 3-1 in extra time in the U.S. Open Cup in August, and Houston also won 3-0 days later in MLS as well. In the last 5 meetings between these teams, both teams' score has actually only hit once between them, so there's often somebody being held off the score sheet. And Houston, at home, they don't give up much. They were 11-4-2 this season. They scored 36, and they only allowed 11 goals. But RSL comes in as the second best, with the second best road record in MLS this season, being 8-4-5. That's 8-4-5 and 28 points. They've been inconsistent of late, but they did end the season 3-1-1. Their final 3 games were a 3-2 home loss to SKC, a team that was out of the playoffs at the time, a 2-2 road draw with the LA Galaxy, a non-playoff team, and a 1-0 road win over Colorado, who are the 28th overall team. So while they were undefeated in their final 3, not the toughest of competition. They will possibly be missing Chicho Arango, which would be a big loss offensively. They definitely will be missing Pablo Ruiz, and they have not looked the same since they lost him. This probably, given how strong Houston has been and Houston's success over RSL this season, this should be a Houston home win, which is probably good enough to bet all by itself. For my purposes here, we will simply ask Houston to get a goal, something they rarely fail to do when they're playing at home. Moving along, it's Cincinnati and the New York Red Bulls in the second of 3 games on Sunday. It's first in the East and the first overall, Cincinnati, and they're hosting the Red Bulls, who were 8th in the conference. There was a 26-point gap between these 2 teams. The Red Bulls needed a stoppage time PK on decision day to make the playoffs, but they got it and they qualified for a record 14th straight year in the playoffs. They played in the wild card and they thumped Charlotte on Wednesday with Elias Manuel scoring a hat-trick. New York was up 3-0 and 3-1. They were in control for the entire game. Now, there were 3 games between these teams this season. First in the U.S. Open Cup, they drew 1-1, with Cincinnati going on to win in PKs. Then in MLS, Cincinnati won 2-1 in New York in July, and New York won 2-1 in Cincinnati on October 4th. Both teams' score is now 6-0 in the past 6 games between these teams. There's been 3 score lines of 1-1 and 3 score lines of 2-1. Cincinnati had a great season. They won the Supporters' Shield, and they have the likely MVP in Luciano Acosta, but only 8 times in 27 playoffs have the Supporters' Shield winner also gone on to win the Cup. However, it did happen last season with LAFC. The Red Bulls are rolling right now, and they are 4-0 and 5-2-1 in their recent games. They've also scored in 6 of their past 7 games. Cincinnati are 3-3-1 in their final 7, but that one loss did come at home to the Red Bulls. They've also managed to score a goal in 10 of their past 11 games, if you look at all competitions, not just MLS. Now, while they've been their dominant home form, though, has weakened just a little bit recently, as they are just 2-1-4 in all competitions at home in the past 7. They still have managed to score a goal in 39 of their past 40 home games in all competitions. If I can't trust the Supporters' Shield winners to at least get a goal at home in the playoffs here, I'm not sure what I can trust. So let's go Cincinnati to score at home over the Red Bulls for the second leg, and we'll round out this parlay with the last game on Sunday, and it's St. Louis and Sporting Kansas City. It's first in the West, and the team with the most points ever for an expansion team, 56, and that's St. Louis. And they're hosting their rivals, Sporting Kansas City, who got into the playoffs only on decision day, coming in 8th, beating Minnesota and ending with 44 points. They played San Jose on Wednesday, 9th, also with 44 points in the wild card, and after drawing 0-0, they went on to win 4-2 in PKs. In the 3 games this season where these teams played each other, each team won at home. First, St. Louis won 4-0, then SKC 2-1, and then St. Louis again 4-1. These are 2 of the highest over teams in the league. If you look at 2.5 goal totals, they are both 24-10. SKC drew 0-0 on Wednesday in the wild card, but in the 9 games prior, their games had seen 3 or more goals in 8 of those 9. So there's been lots of goals in SKC games recently. As good of a season as St. Louis have had, they weren't anything special down the stretch, as they were just 4-3-4 since the League's Cup break. They didn't need the wins, but they did end the season with 3-0 and 2-0 losses, so not going in on a high. But they do get home field, where they are 11-2-4, where they scored 41, which was tied for the most home goals this season with Columbus, and they allowed just 17 goals at home. St. Louis, they have the home field, they should be rested, they are healthy, and they've been a top team all season, but SKC have the experience, and they are also hot at the right time right now. If you take out the early portion of the season over the final 20 games, they are tied for the most points in the West with RSL, and they have the 4th most points in all of MLS. So really, it was just the early part of the season where they struggled that really sunk them and made them have to fight back to get back in the playoffs all season long. But if you take out those first 14 games and look at the last 20, they are essentially one of the top teams in the league. I think this game, as a rivalry, both teams are capable of getting on the score sheet here. You could probably go both teams to score in over 2.5 as a single bet. I'm going to go both teams to score in case we see a hard-fought 1-1. So we'll go both teams to score, St. Louis and SKC, Cincinnati to score, and Houston to score. And that one comes in at plus 101. Now we have 3 games left. 2 of them will take place on Monday. Let's look at the first one. It's Orlando and Nashville. Orlando were second in the East. They have 63 points. They'll host the 7th place team, Nashville, with 49. Each won on the road this season when they played. First Nashville 2-0, and then Orlando 1-0. Orlando's win was as recent as October 4th. In their past 7 in all competitions, when these teams play, the under 2.5 is actually 5-2. That could be the case here again, as both teams, and especially Nashville, are more known for their defense than their offense. Nashville equaled Seattle for the lowest goals allowed in the league this year with 32, but Orlando wasn't far behind, only allowing 39. But Nashville just can't score. Their 39 goals are 15th out of the 16 playoff teams that are remaining, only above the Red Bulls, and better than only 5 teams overall in the entire league. That's counting non-playoff teams as well, obviously. Nashville has actually been shut out in 4 of their past 5 games, and also in 6 of their past 10. Unsurprisingly, in those games, they are just 2, 5, and 3. Now, when you go to Orlando's side, whether you look at the past 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, or 5 rounds, their form has been amazing. The Lions are the team with the most points in MLS, so they might not be your Supporters' Shield winners, but outside, if you almost take out a few games at the beginning of the season, in any of the past recent rounds, they are the team that has collected the most points. So this is certainly one of the top teams in the league. Looking at all competitions, they have just 3 losses in their past 20, and they have scored in 17 of their past 20 games as well. Orlando, they don't really have a star striker, star scorer. They're not really overly amazing in any one thing, but they are very good at most things and not really bad at any one thing. They do have Duncan McGuire, who is in second in team scoring. He has 13 goals, and he comes into the playoffs hot with 4 goals in 3 games and goals in 4 of 5. They also have Facundo Torres, who leads the team with 14 and has goals in 2 of the past 4 games himself. It would have to be, if you were going for a single bet, an Orlando win here with Nashville just being completely out of sorts right now, or maybe just Orlando to score in a parlay, or even just an under 2.5 or an under 3.5 in a parlay as well. So those are some options for that game. The next game on Monday is Seattle and Dallas. Seattle rarely looked that impressive this season, but still, they somehow managed to finish second in the West, even without looking that great. They had 53 points, and they host Dallas, who were 7th with 46. But when you don't allow goals or many chances, you don't really need to be flashy on offense. Seattle's 41 goals scored is more than only 2 of the 16 round 1 playoff teams. Seattle tied with Nashville for the fewest goals allowed this season with 32, like we just touched on earlier in the last game. Seattle, they're second in shots on target allowed, and they're 4th in XG allowed per shot. The 2 games this season between Seattle and Dallas each ended in 1-1 draws, and bets on under 2.5 are now a perfect 7-0 in the past 7 games between these teams. Sticking with all of these low-scoring numbers for Seattle, it makes sense that the under is 6-4 in their past 10 games since Leagues Cup. Seattle is also undefeated in their final 9 games of the season, as they were 4-5-0. Dallas, you could actually say a lot of similar things about them as well. They just win at a much lower rate this season. Their 13 draws were only behind New York City FC's and San Jose's 14. Dallas equaled Seattle with a low-scoring goal total this season with 41 goals. They too are undefeated in 9 games, but like I said, they have a lot of draws. They only have 2 wins to go with 7 draws in that time. Now for Dallas, both teams to score bets have hit in 8 of those 9 games. The under is also 6-2 in their last 8 games. And both of these teams were the highest under teams in the West all season long. Seattle was 21-13 to under 2.5 totals. Dallas was 20-14. This game, I'm not really sure what could happen here. Neither team scores a lot. They both play pretty good defense. Could be a draw, could be an under. If I had to pick one team, I'd probably go to Seattle, as they have been getting more wins than Dallas. And the last game is on Wednesday, and there's just one game here. For some reason, there's no games on Tuesday, but we do have Columbus and Atlanta on Wednesday, and this does look like the potential for one of the most exciting games. The Crew were third in the East. They had 57 points. Atlanta were sixth. They had 51 points. These teams, they just played on October 7th, and they drew 1-1 in Atlanta. Columbus won the earlier meeting 6-1 when they played in Ohio. Both teams' scores now hit in each of the past 5, and 6 of 7 and 8 of 10 for Columbus. Both teams scored over 2.5. It's 4-1, 5-2, and 7-3 in that time as well. Columbus led in goals for this season with 67. You know Columbus are going to score a goal. It's something they've done in 37 of 40 games this season and in all competitions this season. But they've also conceded a goal in 31 of those 40 as well. Atlanta finished the season with just 1 win in 5 and with a 3-2 loss, 1-1 draw, and a 2-2 draw in their final 3. But that does make bets on both teams to score 8-0 in their final 8, and both teams scoring over 2.5, 6-2 as well. Their offense, though, it does run through Thiago Almada, and he got 2 yellows the last game, and he will unfortunately be missing out in Game 1 for Atlanta, which will be a big problem for them as he operates much of that midfield and creates a lot of the scoring chances. Now let's look at some of the offensive numbers for both of these teams, though. And if we look at goals for, Columbus were first, Atlanta were second. XG, Columbus were first, Atlanta were 8th. Shots, Columbus first, Atlanta 13th. Shots on target, Columbus 4th, Atlanta 5th. Attacking third touches, Columbus 1st, Atlanta 9th. Penalty area touches, Columbus 1st, Atlanta 8th. Now if we look at the Golden Boot race, Atlanta's Giacomakos was tied in second with 17 goals, and Cucho Hernandez was 4th for Columbus with 16. I wanted to take both teams to score, or both teams to score an over 2.5, but with no Almada, that gives me a little bit of concern. Certainly Atlanta still has players who can score, and if the Almada missing out doesn't concern you, you could still go that route, but I think I will look a different route here. Atlanta have allowed multiple goals on the road in 3 of their past 4 games. Columbus has scored multiple goals in 6 of their past 7 at home, and in all competitions, they've also scored multiple goals in 12 of their past 14 home games. So, of these last 3 games, in this game, I'm going to go Columbus to score over 1.5 goals on their own, and I will pair that with simply Orlando to score for the final parlay. We'll leave out that Seattle and Dallas game, as I think that could be low scoring and could be a tight game. So if we go Orlando to score and Columbus over 1.5, that comes in at plus 104. So there you go. It's a full round 1 MLS Cup playoff breakdown of every game and every team. Now, whether you tail these picks or not, hopefully there's some good stats in there to make your picks as well. And let me know what your picks are. Drop them in the comments. Give this video a like. Good luck with all of your MLS Cup round 1 playoff picks this weekend.